Is astrology a guide to aid us in mastering the universe? This is the Cosmic Community Podcast with Galactic Ambassador Stacey Dredd.
This astrology report is for the week of July 1st, starting a brand new month with a brand new report for the week. And it just feels like one of those electrifying weeks. We have the conjunction of Venus and Uranus at the very last degrees of Taurus this week. And then Venus moves into Gemini, a planetary shift that brings a lot of energy with it. Gemini being very energetic, and Neptune felt very strongly at the moment, stationing retrograde this week, and also another planetary change. Uranus makes the move into Gemini right after Venus does. So it's a Venus, Uranus, Neptune week, and we'll dive right into what that all means in terms of the astrology. So on July 1st, we start the week out with a Virgo moon. The moon is our mood, so it's going to be the feeling and the vibe of the day. The moon in Virgo loves to be organized, loves to have everything cleaned up and to bring things back to order. There is also a sense to Virgo where we are servers. You become a servant and are working for the greater good of others when there is lots of Virgo energy. So the morning starts off with pretty smooth flowing trines with that Virgo moon. So maybe feeling like we're getting a lot done, able to do a lot of things on the to-do list and clean a lot of things up, maybe things that have been on that list for a while, feeling like sufficiently, well worked. And then the moon shifts into Libra in the midst of the day on the 1st of July, shifting those energies, shifting the mood and our emotions that we feel very much come along with the moon placement. So as we move from the earth sign of Virgo into the air sign of Libra, things become more about thinking, conversating, and speaking. And Libra is a relationship sign and is ruled by Venus. So those Venus things being, having things being harmonized and pleasurable and smoothing things over. Libra is very much a peacekeeper and wants things to be fair and orderly. And in these first degrees of Libra, the moon makes an opposition to a very strong planetary conjunction at the first degrees of Aries. Right now, Saturn and Neptune are about 2 degrees, both of them practically sitting still. Also, Neptune, as I mentioned, going to be retrograding, stationing retrograde this week, and Saturn doing the same next week. And they are so close together. It is practically a conjunction, although it's not exact. They are both going to be moving backwards into Pisces. And when they both return next year in 2026 to this same spot, they will move forward and have their conjunction also. So that will be something to look forward to next year, the exact conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. But for now, we have them so closely sat together that we're feeling that already. And Aries is about taking steps in a new direction. Saturn is about our responsibilities, what we feel responsible for, our boundaries. And then Neptune is about our dreams and our desires and hopes for our future. And Neptune will go over more meanings of as we talk about that planet stationing retrograde later this week. But the moon is in an opposition to that on the evening of July 1st. And so we could just be making some decisions. Oppositions are very much about decision making. So we've been dreaming a lot of new dreams and having them come through the reality check of Saturn over and over again with this conjunction, these new ideas and these new directions that we're going in life. So we could just kind of have a return to those themes on the evening of the 1st, and then on July 2nd, see, the first few days of July 1st, 2nd, 3rd actually don't have any planetary aspects, only lunar aspects. And there's very few days where there are no lunar aspects even. And this week we have a couple of very, very slow days where there are only a couple of things going on, making it a time where we could return to some of the past aspects and some of the past events. So over the first few days of this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we could be kind of mulling over more some of the decisions we've made over the past couple of weeks, over the past few days, that new moon in Cancer that we just experienced. We could be returning to some of those themes and reconsidering and feeling into that. And on July 2nd, we have the first quarter moon phase. So that's when the moon reaches that first quarter around the astrological wheel from the new moon. So it's known as the crisis and action phase. And we could be taking some steps in regards to the lunar cycle that we're in and some of those intentions that we made, some of those new moon intentions on that new moon in Cancer last week. And on July 3rd, just a couple, this is a very slow day. We have an inconjunct and an opposition on this day with the moon. And those are the only aspects of the day. And so a very slow moving day on July 3rd. We've got planets sitting very still, not doing a lot of movement. We have recently had the fastest moving planet, Mercury, enter its retrograde shadow in Leo. And that means that Mercury is beginning to slow down also. So there is a major, major slowdown this week. And Thursday, July 3rd, could be one of those really slow days. We have an inconjunct, which is just kind of an annoying aspect, and an opposition, which is a decision-making aspect. And those are just lunar aspects, with this moon in Libra at the final degrees coming into that opposition with Chiron, the wounded healer. So we could be addressing some of our immortal wounds, some of the things that we are healing through this life, and also through all of our past lives, because Chiron deals, like I said, with those immortal wounds. So things that we brought into this life from the past lives, even ancestral energy and karma, ancestral karma in terms of healing and your health with Chiron here. So then we move to a very busy day. Friday is a firecracker of a day, and I no pun intended. We have that Libra moon in the very, very morning, and a couple of inconjuncts during our restful period. Most of us will be sleeping during those inconjuncts, but if you are awake during that time, there could be some kind of annoying, irritable, inconjunctive energy over the evening. And then the moon moves into Scorpio, and Scorpio is a very deep energy. Makes us feel a lot of depth. And we go to these deep places with Scorpio, ruled by the planet of Pluto. So all the far off, mysterious things, even taboo themes, things we don't like to talk about, are tied up in Scorpio. And some of those things can come to light when the moon is there. Death and rebirth, very much tied up into Scorpio. The phoenix rising from the ashes, right? Deep transformative states are here with Scorpio. Trances also deals with the topics of fear and control and sex. And so that's what we get moving into our 4th of July. Scorpio always brings in some really interesting, sort of more instinctual energy, as the traditional planetary ruler was Mars, and Mars is like a sexy go-getter warrior. So there's an aspect of that. Scorpio is the feminine warrior in the astrological wheel. And this day is a firecracker day because we have a conjunction between Venus and Uranus, and this is at 29 degrees and 50 minutes of Taurus, and that just means that it's at a very, very critical degree. It is at the last points of Taurus before, as I mentioned, Uranus later this week is going to move into Gemini. But here we get the last shebang. This is the last chance summer dance. Venus comes in her home sign, fired up, full of all of the goodness that she has gained from being in Taurus, and applies to Uranus. Uranus is the energy of surprise and of awakening and of electricity and of real shakeups here. Taurus has been through the ringer with Uranus over the past several years. So if you have a lot of Taurus energy in your chart, or any of your main points, ascendant, sun, moon in Taurus, then you've been feeling this. You know, everyone has Taurus in their chart. It represents an area of your life. Look at the house where Taurus lines up. That is what you can expect to be addressing, that area of your life, whatever house that is that Taurus covers in your birth chart during Taurus season. And so here we are with a fixed earth sign that doesn't like to budge, right? With a Uranus transit over the past several years. And it's been earth shattering. It's been a real shakeup for an energy that doesn't like to be shaken up very much and tries to stand its ground. So at these very critical last degrees, we see that last opportunity to blast off here and have the finalized awakenings, the finalized shakeups, the final little twists to our nervous system here. This is electric. This is, I think, being felt all week as we move into it and out of it. Just so happens that right in my area, as I'm giving this report, there is a huge lightning storm going on, and it just keeps reminding me of the amazing synchronicity here. And as above, so below. This is one of those weeks that brings with it a ton of electricity and already a lot of shakeups. And I think that we could continue to see some of this year's biggest earth and weather events through this conjunction, through the weekend. So play it safe and make sure to check your weather reports wherever you are going to be outside. Then after that conjunction, Venus applies all of her to Uranus right as she's leaving, and then moves into Gemini. This is going to change the feminine energy. Venus is the cosmic lover, the feminine cosmic lover. And so the feminine energy changes as Venus moves. And this is also where a lot of our creativity lies with Venus and where we find pleasure and how we seek pleasure. Venus represents our relationships also. So relationships tend to go through changes as Venus moves from sign to sign. And Gemini is a sign of like one-on-one relationships. It's an air sign, and Gemini is not represented by one but two. So it takes two, baby. And when Venus moves into Gemini, she becomes very, very curious about these one-on-one relationships and conversations, sharing ideas with others and kind of going back and forth and back and forth. That's a very Gemini thing. Doing like an interview with somebody, a question and an answer, a question and an answer. That kind of interaction is very, very Gemini. And this is where Venus is going to find her pleasure. And this is where we go if we want to work with the energies. It's very mental. This is going to be a data collecting Venus, and she's going to be super curious about everything. And this exact same day, July 4th, still talking about July 4th, it's a very busy day. We have Neptune stationing retrograde. And this is one that we've been feeling and getting acquainted with, because when a planet is slowing down to station, you feel them very intensely. And Neptune represents our hopes, our dreams, our desires, also our spiritual selves, the spiritual self, that part of ourself that contains the spirituality. It's very creative. Neptune is the creator. It's all about art and fine things and good music. And Neptune's the sign that rules drugs and alcohol also. So folks that indulge in drugs and alcohol, that can shift and move with Neptune also and be felt very strongly right now. A desire to kind of get lost in things, because Neptune just likes to dissolve everything. And so the drugs and alcohol, you can see how that fits in there. Our dreams are our dreams for our life, our hopes in that regard, but also our sleeping states, our dream states are all swept up into Neptune. Could be having some really major dream spaces, realizations, awakenings. Uranus here involved this week too, at that 29th degree, some big awakenings in our dream states. So pay attention there. Neptune is all about that illusion and delusion and muddying things, and rules the oceans and the water. And so things could feel a bit muddied right now and emotional, because there's a lot of emotion caught up into that. But Neptune contains with it unconditional love. So that can rule over everything when it comes to Neptune. And then we move out of July 4th. That is just a really busy day. July 5th, a very slow day, just a Scorpio moon with a couple of trines. Trines are really nice. They're quick, easy, flowing. And so this could be a very pleasant day to land in, go deep, kind of get lost in something this day. Get lost in a project or an art, some type of art project, or, some adventure, or some internal, meditative state or something like that on Saturday. And then Sunday, we have that Scorpio moon in the morning, and Venus freshly moved into Gemini, that curious feminine energy, in a sextile, a very harmonizing, balancing aspect to Saturn and that Neptune that has just stationed retrograde. And these two As I mentioned, our Saturn, Neptune have their energies blended right now. They are in that conjunction. We are dreaming and having reality checks. The Neptune brings in the dreams. The reality checks come from Saturn. Venus comes in. She's very curious, asking a lot of questions, figures a lot of data and keeps moving because she's moving pretty quickly. Moon moves into Sagittarius on the 6th of July, and this is an adventurous mood. Sagittarius brings in the fire, brings in the spark, brings in the light, and brings in the visions, the grander visions, that larger vision that we have for life or for projects or for things. Sagittarius has the ability to see that larger vision and blows it up a little bit because everything that Sag does is just big. And this is a good time to also go to nature. This is a Sagittarius thing that rules nature and natural spaces and areas. Because on July 7th, we're going to be happy that we had a couple of slow days as Uranus moves into Gemini. We get another blast of that airy energy. It is like opening up all the windows when a planet moves in to Gemini. And so that is how we end this report week. And I really appreciate you being tuned in here to the Cosmic Community Astrology with the Galactic Ambassador, Stacey Dredd. And I will be chatting with you again very soon. Take care. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Community Podcast. More can be found at kpov.org/thecosmiccommunity.